Aioli. What up, nation? Welcome to another edition of the WiseTake MLB DFS Wise Stream. CK013 here. You can find me on Twitter at CK_013. And I, of course, am from the WiseTake Nation, which you can find on all the social media platforms that sit above or directly at WiseTake.com. If you're looking to take your DFS game to the next level, we are a premium DFS content provider as well as a DFS community designed to help make you a better DFS player. Go check it out. If you are new to this channel, welcome. You came to the right place for free MLB DFS content. DFS content in general. We cover NBA, NFL, all that good shit. Right now, our NBA stuff is behind the paywall at WiseTake.com. We do a pre-lock show leading you up to lock 45 minutes prior. We have day passes available. Go check it out. Blah, 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 blah. But if you're here, you still came to the right place for some free shit. So hit that like button. Subscribe to the channel. Don't hit the notifications bell. Don't miss out on any of the free content we put out. And share the show. Sharing will help us grow. The more we grow, the more we're able to put back into our products, into our content. We appreciate the support. I don't know how many of you played the early slate. If you did, hopefully you avoided the DeGrom New York Mets situation. That game was postponed, unfortunately, after the lock time. I made my donation, if you will. I always play ladder on the early slates just because I don't have as much time to get everything in there. But, you know, it is what it is. I made my donation, if you will, to the early slate. Had like 40% DeGrom, had like 10% Met stacks, 30% Lindor. You know, it happens. Shit happens. But it's all good because we got this main slate to focus on. That'll be where a majority of my money goes into for today's baseball content. Shout out to D. Millie. See you on the YouTube chat. Longtime WiseTake Nation member, OG member, if you will. Says he got 7th with 2 zeros last night. The tilt is real. Yeah, man, the tilt is real. 2 zeros and he got 7th. I can't tell you how many times this season I've been in the FanDuel Donkey, which is a terrible tournament to begin with, right? Like, I do it because it's low buy-ins with a chance to win 30, 40, 50 grand, whatever the prize is that night. But the structure of it is terrible. It's so top-heavy. You could cash majority of your teams and still lose money. That's how bad the structure is. But I can't tell you how many times I've been in that position with, like, 30th place. Mike Trout homer would have put me in, like, second or first or whatever, and I get the goose egg. Then, the next slate, I don't have Trout in that lineup, and I'm still like 15 points out of first, and then Mike Trout hits the bomb and just knocks me way back to like 150th, 200th place or some shit. I can't tell you how many times that. The tilt is real with MLB. Let's be real about it. But shout out to Millie for being in that position. Finishing 7th is still dope. Patrick Bush, what's going on, bro? Good to see you. Says he only won $1.50 and $1 single entry, but he wants to keep playing more baseball. It's tough doing MLB and NBA, but he can balance it. Yeah, man, it is tough, man. It's a grind, especially when they lock at the same time. Today, NBA starts a little bit later at 7:30, which is better for me. I mean, usually we're on the Wise stream for NBA anyway, but still, at least we can process some of the news and do what we got to do and kind of push one sport to the side and focus on the other. It's definitely tough to juggle them, but, I mean, you got to admit, man, it's exciting as hell to have two different sports to sweat. Even if it is at the same time, it's just it's a great time, man. I love it. We have more overlap this year than we ever do because of how late NBA started, and we'll enjoy the ride. NBA, we got like a month, less than a month, I think, before NBA regular season ends. So enjoy it while we can. Shout out to you, Pat. We appreciate you, bro. That being said, let's go ahead and jump into tonight's main slate. It's not a big one at all. And we have a lot of lefties, as you can see. A lot of lefties. Urias, Hill, Corbin, Minaya, Gomber, Tyreek Skubal. A lot of lefties. So we have a lot to get through, and we're going to go ahead and get into it now. The projections have not been posted to the site just yet. Well, they're available if you go through the MLB page, but the post itself is not up there yet. I'm going to make some adjustments after the show. Just wanted to kind of break this down with you guys as usual, see what we have to work with, and see what we agree, disagree on. Make the adjustments from there. That being said, let's go ahead and do some dirties. Let me just share this out. Try to get more people involved, get more people excited about what we're doing here. Oh man, I'm getting torn up on Twitter, man. At like 6 a.m, I had made a tweet. You read a bunch of shit, and sometimes people say things that like really aren't my business or my place to get involved. But people say things that are just, they don't know what to talk. Like, they have no experience in what they're talking about. This has nothing to do with DFS, which I know. I realize a lot of you should think I should stick to DFS tweets, and I agree, to be honest with you. But people will constantly say things that like they have no education on, they got no knowledge of. They just think they know, right? And they'll just say all these things that they could be influencing people to make poor decisions. And so anyway, long story short, I made a tweet that people say some dumb shit on Twitter because that was just my way of expressing, get that shit off. And it's kind of an oxymoron because you could argue that was a dumb thing to say on Twitter. Like, obviously, people say dumb shit on social media. But I'm getting it now. Everybody telling me, well, you're new to Twitter. Welcome to Twitter, all this shit. So I know. I deserve that one. Anyway, let's get into it. We got Urias. I can never say his name right, but who gives a fuck? We can read his stats. That's all that matters. He's looked pretty good so far this season. The projected lineup for the Rockies does strike out. Fairly heavy. Only 3 players in this projected lineup under 20%. And we don't even know if those guys will be in. We're talking about Daza, Diaz, and Blackman, who I'm sure will be in there. Lefty action. Based off the numbers we're looking at now, let me just refresh this. It's showing me the last 2 seasons. I want to see. That's not the one. All right, let's take a look at 2020, specifically the most recent stuff. So, yeah, I mean, this guy's got good stuff, man. He's got good stuff. We've got a 13% swing and strike rate last year. 24% K rate overall. 4.16 xFIP. Well, we have a 5.06 xFIP from last year, so the numbers are off from what we have. Did have a low BABIP, telling us that he got a little fortunate last year, but I do think he looks better this year. I legitimately believe he looks better. And this Rockies starting lineup, like I said, last year struck out pretty heavy. They have some guys that mashed lefties last year. Trevor Story, obviously. CJ Cron on a limited sample. Fuentes. So they had some guys that can do the dirty. But overall, I think Urias is interesting. My problem with him is pitch count. But it's not about him specifically. It's about the Dodgers, really, right? They have a tendency to not let their guys go very long. They trust their bullpen, blah, 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 blah. But it was promising to see that he did throw 95 pitches against the Nationals in his last start. That tells me that maybe he's taking a step forward. They're going to trust him a little bit more. The Nationals are a really tough team to pitch against, especially with a lefty. They just don't strike out a lot. They put a lot of balls in play. He did give up 3 earned runs and a homer against Washington, but like I said, it's kind of a tough situation. I expect him to perform well today, and I do like him today. Simple as that. Rich Hill. Rich Hill is 9K on DraftKings, only 7.7 on FanDuel. Kind of interesting. I'm curious to hear your thoughts. Do you think on FanDuel he is a trap, if you will? Because I think that his price kind of stands out amongst others that he's listed around. We're talking about Jordan Lyles is more expensive on FanDuel by $200 than Rich Hill. And he's playing a Texas team that last year was one of the worst offenses in the league. But this year, they've been a little bit better. Right? We have to admit that. They've been a little bit better. Rich Hill has had 2 appearances so far. He threw 71 pitches in his first game. It did not go well against Miami, but as you can see, you don't fuck with Miami with lefties, man. Miami can hit some lefties. They gave up 4 earned runs and a homer. He then faced the Yankees, which is obviously a very good offense. Gave up a homer and 4 earned runs again, but he did throw 83 pitches. That was more promising. Had 7 Ks. That was good to see. Now he faces the Rangers. Let's delve into this one a little bit. He is at home in a very pitcher-friendly park. Looking at his numbers from last season, 3.03 ERA, but the xFIP was significantly higher. His BABIP was also very low, telling us that luck was on his side. Hard contact rate was low. That was good to see. Hard contact rate was very low. He did not strike out a lot of lefties, but he only had 21 plate appearances against lefties. Right? He actually struggled with lefties. 19% walk rate. It's not pretty. But if you look at the Rangers and what they did against lefties, I mean, granted, like Culberson had like 7 plate appearances against lefties last year. So we're working with Garcia had 5. But you got some of these guys, man. Like Dahl had 30 plate appearances, 26.7% strikeout rate. Joey Gallo, 43.6. Nate Lau only had 19, but 73.7. There's a lot of strikeouts here again for lefties. So I like Rich Hill a lot. I mean, it makes sense too. Most of the better hitters, or I should say some of the best hitters on this on this Texas team are left-handed. Joey Gallo, David Dahl, Nate Lau, some of their best guys are left-handed. So I like Rich Hill as of right now. It's scurry, right? Tampa Bay pitchers haven't done it. Well, Glasnow certainly did his dirty, but I'm in it, man. Right now, Rich Hill looks like one of the best arms on the slate on FanDuel at 7.7. On DraftKings at 9K, you got to make some decisions because he's not as easy to pitch with Urias. I mean, if I'm saying his name wrong, my bad. But either way, yeah, Rich Hill looks pretty good. Maybe you can get some leverage action with Texas if Rich Hill ends up popular, especially on FanDuel. But I like what I'm willing to take some shots on Rich Hill, and I don't play him a ton. I really don't. Matter of fact, we can go a step further and see how the profile looks against the curveball because we know Rich Hill relies heavily on that curveball. It's not great. It looks like very small samples, not even worth getting into. Holla at your boy, Screamo. Patrick Corbin. going up against his old team, the Arizona Diamondbacks. Patrick Corbin last year, a little on the unlucky side, 3.62 BABIP. His ERA and his xFIP and Sierra weren't great. They were still lower than his ERA, which is good to see, but it wasn't great. We expect more from Mr. Patrick Corbin, who got a big contract. What was it, the year before? The issue I have with the D-backs is they don't have a ton of strikeout upside against lefties. It does help that they're missing Ketel Marte, probably their best player overall. That certainly he has that going for him. But Corbin is a guy that does give up hard contact when he's not missing bats. And last year, he really didn't miss a ton of bats. His strikeout rate was down at 20.3% or so, whatever it was. Swinging strike rate was at 10.6, which for him is low relative to what he's done. Now, his fly ball rates aren't that bad. That's good to see. The park is okay. Again, the issue comes down to strikeout rate. Now, that being said, last year, the year before, the D-backs were like extremely good against lefties. Last year, they didn't strike out a ton, but they really weren't good against lefties, right? They really struggled. Eduardo Escobar last year, .098 ISO with a 245 WOBA. Nick Ahmed, we pretty much only like to play him against lefties, but just down the list, we can go down the list. I'm not going to waste your time, but we can go down the list. They did not do well against lefties. That's the bottom line. The more interesting piece here is Corbin himself, who is very cheap. He could be the DraftKings trap, I guess. He played the Dodgers. Now, you don't want to overreact. The Dodgers are a very good offense. Yeah, there were years where they weren't good against lefties, but that's kind of gone now, that whole narrative, right? So looking at Corbin, who was 8,700 against the Dodgers in his first start, gave up 6 earned runs, only went 4 1/3, threw 80 pitches, 5 fly balls, 4 ground balls, did have 5 Ks, only 1 homer, but he got kind of tattooed. So I think he could end up being a popular SP2 choice on DraftKings at 7,800, and that makes me a little bit nervous if he ends up popular. I'm just going to leave it at that. Again, the strikeout upside is not really there, so we need him to kind of eat innings and go. We saw with Rodon, we talked about yesterday. There was a lot I got wrong yesterday, but we talked about how the issue with Rodon I had is the strikeout upside, and that ended up being true. He didn't have a lot of strikeouts considering he pitched a full game, but the Indians just couldn't hit. They just couldn't get an actual hit off him, literally a no-hitter. So those are some of the things that we have to consider. Strikeouts are still king to me. Every now and again, you're going to get a pitcher that gets to go deep and does what he does because the other team just can't get a literal hit. But all in all, I think that strikeouts are still king, so I'm a little nervous about it. Sean Manaea going up against the Tigers, man. The Tigers have been red fucking hot, man. They are just red hot, and we keep talking about it, waiting for them to come back down to earth, but it doesn't seem to be happening anytime soon. The Tigers are a team I don't like to pick on with lefties. They got Wilson Ramos has been red hot. They got Candelario last year at a 256 ISO, 463 WOBA. They got Renato Nunez. Jonathan Scope is better against lefties. Jacoby Jones, 429 ISO last year against lefties. This is a team I don't like to mess with lefties. Now, Manaea does have some pretty solid ground ball rates, 50%, best on a slate going by last year's numbers. But he does give up a lot of hard contact, so that there are some red flags. Now, it does look like last year his xFIP and Sierra were lower than his ERA, which is a promising sign. So there is potential here, and he is really cheap. And I think it's going to grab some people's attention that he's really cheap. The good news for him is that this game is in Oakland. He's at home in a park that is very pitcher-friendly, that is big, got a lot of foul ball territory, which the benefit of that for a pitcher is the more foul ball territory there is, a guy pops a foul in a stadium with like very narrow sidelines, the ball gets out of the park, no play is made. Now, his players, first baseman, third baseman, shortstop, they have a little more time to go get that ball, right? So something to consider. But I think Manaea is kind of interesting. It's just, do you want to pick on the Tigers right now? They're red fucking hot. Red hot right now. I just don't know if I want to pick on the Tigers. But probably a situation where we're going to want to get some of. At least get some exposure to. Because he is very cheap relative to the upside that we know he has. Let's take a look at what he's done so far this season. Against Houston, did not do well. Gave up 2 homers and 5 earned runs. Played Houston again 5 days later. Only gave up 1 earned run. Had 4 Ks. Much better result. So the price is still low relative to the upside. As far as pitch count, he threw 101 pitches that first game. And he threw 97 the second. So he is stretched out. So that's good for quality start purposes and all that. You feel like he's got a shot. Jordan Lyles was one of the worst pitchers in the league last year. We made it a point to attack him. He did correct himself at some point, though. It's worth noting. He did kind of correct himself at some point. Last year, 7.02 ERA, 5.92 xFIP, 5.62 SIERA, 13% strikeout rate. He's somebody that I really want to see because I think he's been doing well to start the season, and I want to look into as to why. Like, what the hell? He's 7,300 on DraftKings. So, Kansas City, he had 8 Ks. Granted, it's Kansas City, and he was in Kansas City, a pitcher-friendly ballpark. Mind you, he has a pitcher-friendly ballpark again today. He played San Diego. Things didn't go quite as well. 4 1/3. He's only thrown 78 pitches and 76 pitches. Keep that in mind. 2 homers, 3 earned runs, 2 walks, only 1 K. A little bit more back down to earth what we expect from him right now. He is playing a Rays team that has been very strikeout heavy. Granted, this is the same Rays team that went to the World Series last year, but they strike out a ton. It don't make a difference. You strike out, you strike out. That's just, it is what it is. Looking at Lyle's numbers from last year, he was particularly bad against righties from an ISO perspective, right? So he had a 349 WOBA to lefties, 370 to righties, a 150 ISO to lefties, a 262 to righties. So he has struggled, needless to say. 40% hard contact rate to both sides. Ground ball rate was 39.2 to lefties, 41% to righties. Not great, right? Not great. Again, he has the good park working for him, and he has a team that strikes out a lot, but I still feel like in my bones we want to attack this dude. So I'm liking the Rays offense. I can tell you definitively the other ones where we're on kind of both sides of the fence that I like Jordan Lyles in this particular spot. Could that bite me in the ass? Will it bite me in the ass? Very well could. The Rays have done that to me a couple times, but I think that the Rays get to him. So I'm interested in that spot. Merrill Kelly, man, this is a guy that I just don't understand. There's nothing in his metrics that tell me he's a good pitcher. Yeah, last year's ERA was 2.59, xFIP 3.95, SIERA 3.92. But there was nothing in his metrics that indicated to me that he should not be getting his ass kicked, and I'll explain why in a second. Let me pull his ass up. 9.5 swing and strike rate, 48% hard contact rate to righties, 40.6 to lefties. Now, against lefties, he did have a 56% ground ball rate, which certainly helps, right? A 247 BABIP, right? So it tells me that he has been a little bit lucky. Now, based off the contact metrics, the xFIP, SIERA account for all that shit, it still looks like he still would have had a pretty solid year. I'm just not sold. He's given up more powers to righties. We talked about more hard contact, less ground balls. And if you look at this team, like you got Soto, obviously, and Schwarber, some lefties to be fearful of, but Trey Turner's a righty who's done really well against righties. We've got outside of that, I guess the lineup is ugly for the Nats, but you do got some big power bats, man. We got Turner, Soto, Bell, Schwarber, who are all pretty good. So I'm just not a Merrill Kelly guy. The Nationals are a team I don't love to pick on anyway, as they got some guys that really don't strike out. So I lean more towards the Washington side in terms of bats. I like the Washington bats. This guy gives up. Last year, according to this slate, this guy gave it the most hard contact of anyone. So I'm expecting to see that 247 BABIP balance out a little bit this year, and I expect to see him get hit a little bit. Boom. Shika. Austin Gomber making a start against the Dodgers, right? 1.86 ERA last year, 4.75 xFIP, 4.82 CA. Talk about lucky. This is a guy who looks like he was very lucky last year. Playing arguably one of, if not the best offenses in the league. I want to keep that and take that into consideration. Let's take a look a little further. Mr. Gomber. He does have good ground ball rates. Always kind of has. That's kind of been his spiel. 25% hard contact rate to righties. He really didn't give up a lot of hard contact. But if you look at the Dodgers numbers, even against lefties, man, last year they were just so fucking good. Mookie Betts, ironically, did not do very well against lefties last year. He relies on a curveball fairly heavily. Last year, his samples weren't great because he came out of the bullpen a lot. But, yeah, I mean, I'm not pitching him against the Dodgers. I can tell you that. And I have to eat my word. I have to eat it real quick because I did speak poorly of David Peterson. I even said it to Paulie personally. He asked me, as a Met fan, what do you think of Peterson against the Phillies? And I said, I'm playing the Phillies. That dude sucks. And I still stand by it. I still don't think he's that great. But he did fucking stick my foot very far into my mouth, and he just fucking shoved it last night. So shout out to him. But I'll lean towards the Dodgers. Jacob Junis. This is one of the more interesting spots on the slate, I think, in terms of pitchers versus matchup goes. So Toronto, big park downgrade. They've been playing in a park that is I'm noticing that we're missing a picture here. Let me see if Rourke has been confirmed. No, Toronto, we still don't have a picture for Toronto. Keep that in mind. Anyway, so Junis is a guy that I think had decent upside at what I thought had decent upside at one point of his career. Last year was not really the case. Toronto is a good offense, right? But they are young and free swinging. If we look at Junis' numbers last year, they are one of the worst on the slate. But it does look like he was really particularly unlucky. 350 batting average balls in play. Let me fix this. It's gonna drive me crazy. Bang, that's how we do that. So yeah, 350 batting average balls in play. Tells me he's been, he's a little unlucky last year. Kansas City's park grades out as the best for pitchers. And Toronto's just so iffy, man. So iffy. What it comes down to is we've got a low price. Now, I don't think I'm that interested on FanDuel, but on DraftKings where I need two pitchers, I think 6,400 on DraftKings is really low. And I think that Toronto has potential to strike out. Now, Junis himself last year did not get a lot of strikeouts. That's something he struggled with. If we look at 2019, he was up to around 21%. So I do think that maybe last year was a little more of an anomaly. He dealt with injuries a lot last year. I know I'm making excuses for him, but I think there's some potential here in that price when you consider how great the park is and all that. That being said, I don't want to rule out Toronto all the way. And I think it's a hedge situation if you do play a decent amount of Junis, because Toronto obviously does have power. They do have ability. And Kansas City's bullpen last year was horrendous. I expect them to be a little bit more improved this year, but last year they were horrendous. So that's that. On the flip side, before I get into Tyreek Skubal, I will say this about we don't know who's pitching for Toronto. If it's Tanner Rourke, I will attack the shit out of him. I don't know if it's going to be him. His numbers were horrendous last year. We don't have him on the sheet because he's not confirmed as a starter, but he was fucking terrible. And even this season, he's been getting his ass kicked. Mr. Tanner Rourke. Blue Jays manager. Rourke will be moved to a long relief role. So do we see Rourke get... By the way, Rourke played Texas, and Texas gave up 3 home runs, 5 earned runs. Do we see Rourke... Come out of the bullpen today? Do we see an opener and then a Rourke? If we do, I don't give a fuck. I'm playing Kansas City. That's what I'm doing. So I'll be on the lookout to see who we think is going to pitch. But it does look like, despite the fact that DraftKings has him listed as the pitcher, it does look like I see a note here from the 11th saying that the manager Charlie Montoyo said Sunday Rourke will be moved to a long relief role. So we'll have to see what that looks like. On to Tyreek Skubal. Playing in Oakland, big park boost for him. Looking at 2020 numbers, had an okay sample size. It was a small season. 12.9% swinging strike rate, 27.6% strikeout rate. I'm interested, man. You got a strikeout rate that high? I'm interested. He gives up a lot of fly balls, but he's in the right park for it. Oakland grades out as the 3rd best pitching park in the game for us. And he's playing an Oakland A's team that did strike out. They really struggled with lefties last year. 26.3% in this projected lineup. They've got some guys like Andres who are tough to strike out nonetheless, but they do have Lowry back there. But most importantly, Team ISO 147, 287 WOBA against lefties. They struggled. They did. This guy, Skubal, is an extreme fly ball pitcher. He gives up hard contact. All the stuff you would want to attack, but he also has a lot of good strikeout stuff. And he's another one that's just really cheap. 6'3" on FanDuel. Let's take a look and see what he's done this year. So far, he's had 2 appearances. He played Cleveland twice, which is a very tough team to strike out, and that's kind of his deal. The first game was at home. He had 4 Ks and 5 1/3, 2 earned runs. Not terrible, but not great. Second game, he got lit up. 3 homers, 6 home runs. So, another situation that's kind of polarizing, meaning that you're going to want to have some of both sides. As I always say, I play at least 150 lineups on each site, really, when I'm playing. But I'm an MME dude. I like to get exposures and all that kind of stuff. But this is a situation where it's going to go one way or the other. Either Skubal, because of how bad the pitching slate is, and in my opinion, it's not great, either he's going to do really well or he's going to do really fucking shitty. That's just what it comes down to. So either he strikes out a bunch of A's in this big-ass ballpark, or the A's are going to literally hit home runs off his ass. So that's where I think that goes. I'll have a little bit of both. But I do think that Skubal's kind of interesting. And we need pitching, man. Like we need it. We don't have a lot. I'm trying to hype up Jake Junis over here. That's how fucking ugly it is. But Uriah is looking like one of the safer options, probably your cash game guy. I do like Rich Hill on FanDuel. On DraftKings at 9K, I feel like we're overpaying for a guy that's not really proven. Again, his 3.03 ERA is fine, but his 4.93 xFIP last year was not good. 5.17 SIERA, even worse. And we have Patrick Corbin, who I think is underpriced for what we know him as, but realistically has not looked good. I expect to see him improve. Last year he was really unlucky, it looks like, but his numbers were also kind of lagging last year. So I think it's an interesting slate. I'll be working on my article on the projections and all that shit shortly after the show ends. Excited to see what we fall into. Hopefully, if you got an early game sweat going, you got dirties going on, you got some shit you're rolling with and all that good stuff, and we can make it work. Again, I did donate about half my teams to the to the Mets. Matter of fact, I have one team right now in the $1 over there in fourth place with Jacob deGrom with a big fat 0. So shout out to the Mets for making that decision and ultimately trying to ruin my life. And shout out to Miami. Miami's been hot, man. You have to admit. They've been hot, man. But I appreciate you guys. Please like the video. Please share the video. Please subscribe to the channel. Notifications bell on. Check us out at WiseTake.com. Be a part of the nation. We got some changes coming up after NBA ends. I'm going to be way more into the Slack. I'm going to have more time to be up in there. We're going to make an emphasis to get into our chat rooms. I'm trying to get the switch to Discord, but I'm trying to find a way where I can get it to link up to our site's memberships, so it's not manually adjusted. Once that happens, we are making an emphasis to be more in the chat. We just feel like the Wisestream videos are great at the site, but I think like we can do our shows free, get a chance to talk to more people, show more people like how we do things, what we're about, and really get more hands-on in the chat with our members to make sure that we can help them out as late as possible. Because obviously when we're on a show prior to lock, it's hard for us to be in the chat room at the same time. During the day, we're writing articles, adjusting projections and all that kind of stuff. So we're going to try to make that move. I'm just trying to figure out how we can link up the Discord to our membership software of the site. If we can make that work, great. If not, we'll just have to do it old school style with the Slack. So I appreciate y'all. Please hit the like button. Look out for the article. Projections will be posted shortly. For myself, the entire WiseTake Nation, as always, good luck.